Welcome back to the Mission Debrief. My name is Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And you are listening to episode number 6, Mission 141. And this season of the Mission Debrief is sponsored by
Specialty Gas House.
Mission 141. Just came off of Mission 141 a few days ago. It was an amazing trip. Just starting to get a little of the warm season.
A little toasty.
A little toasty.
Before we dive straight into the mission, let's talk about sponsor of the actual mission was the Delaware Moose Lodge number 1167, as well as our Grateful American flight. So donations that go to Honor Flight Columbus are always part of that Grateful American spot if you ever see that on our sponsorships. So would not have been possible without those two groups.
Oh, awesome. Like we said, it was getting a little toasty.
Yes. We had a little bit of everything because when it started out, it was a little cool. Yep. Then it got a little hot. Then it got a little stormy, a little rainy. We'll get into it. Yep. It was good though. It was really good.
Yeah, we still made all of our stops. It was an incredible time.
Schedule was kept. Actually, this was the first flight this season that we kept the schedule we intended to keep.
Yeah.
We
noticed that from the beginning.
It felt good because we had arranged it. But we'll get into that. Starting off with the airport experience. Usually we go on and on about some of our airport faves. But one of the big things that was... I feel like I need to take a deep breath before I go into this. The real ID situation. So...
You guys have been talking about this for a while.
I mean, it's been 5 years.
It's been a scuttle. I'm about to say, I don't even remember. I remember when I first got it, they were like, oh, there's a star on yours. You'll have to get it eventually. I think when I first got it at the time, they were like, you can get it. You don't have to get it.
Yeah, it was optional for a while.
It was optional, yeah. So,
but as of May 7th, 2025, it is not optional. It is necessary to fly. Now, there are some other things at TSA on their website you can check out if you're flying commercially. But if you are flying with us, you have to have your real ID. And so this can be a passport. This can be your veteran health identification card. There's a couple things on TSA's website. I cannot reiterate enough. This is not an Honor Flight Columbus policy. This is the law. So
the law.
So every veteran we booked back in February for Mission 141 and beyond, we talked with them about this and we only booked them if they said they had it. So Guardians then are having to show their ID at training, mission training. And from here on out, if they don't have it, they can't fly with us. So that's just to make sure that we're prepared and the veterans will have the best day possible. And we don't lose a Guardian, God forbid, the morning of. That'd be horrible. Oh, you're getting funky.
I've been waiting to use that for a while.
At least episode 6 in. So anyways, at the airport, not only did we have the new Real ID requirement, but also the first 2 flights were a Velo. Yep. This flight was Allegiant.
Yep.
The only thing I'll say about Allegiant, people who fly Allegiant always talk about, it's a budget airline, budget seats, whatever. All that's true. But how nice was the larger aisles?
Amazing.
It was so helpful for loading and unloading for me. Personally, really loved that. But obviously I want the veterans to have the most comfortable seats. So,
Yeah.
But still, that was kind of interesting. It was like there was a hallway in the middle of the plane.
I was a little excited at one point, I think, when we got off the first time, because I have a hard time. If you ever see me on a flight, I'm carrying a very, very, very large bag on my back and trying to hold cameras in front of me. And I know I have
smacked him in the face.
And I try not to look back like, I just say sorry as I'm passing people because I know I'm hitting people. And this time I kind of was dancing around.
You had some wiggle room.
Yeah, with the doctor, I go, hey, isn't this nice? And he's looking at me because I've went on a flight with him before, but we didn't know each other. And I'm like, isn't this nice? He's looking at me like, are you all right?
This guy's crazy.
This guy's crazy. So.
Alex likes to pretend he knows everyone.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention before we move beyond the airport was actually a send-off that a veteran received. So Violet Township Fire Department here in Ohio posted this and said, today we had the honor of recognizing one of our local heroes. We visited Violet Springs to celebrate Mr. Larry, a proud veteran who is heading to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. So this would have been Wednesday night. as part of the honor flight. To mark the occasion, Engine 591 proudly flew the American flag from our aerial ladder in his honor. So that's really cool. So he lived in this senior living center, and there's a picture of it on Facebook. We reposted it so you can see it on our Facebook page. But he's wearing his veteran shirt the night before for the send-off, his Air Force hat on. Really, really sweet to see the community come out like that. And we'll get that every once in a while, and I think that's so neat. So then we send our veterans off from Columbus. We get to Dulles Airport, which has been our location we've been flying into this season. And again, the Dulles volunteers and greeters have always, there's so many people there that are showing up in the morning, braving the rush hour traffic in DC to be there and greet our veterans. But there's another group, Alex, that I specifically wanted you to kind of, share a little bit about because you've gotten to know them. We have been every flight this season until they're no longer stationed there, meeting up with the 174th Air Defense Artillery Brigade.
Correct. Task Force Brutus. Amazing group of soldiers who, like you said, they've been with us along the way. There's been some that come and go, and we've had a core group of people.
Well, and the Corps, to mention, that Corps was the same last year, and maybe even the year before. The season started to blur, but definitely the whole year last year. And then they were deployed in DC, and then they went home, and then this is their replacement, actually. Yeah. I don't know if you put that together. We talked a little bit about that on another episode.
Yeah. One gentleman I know is still there. But yes, amazing group of people. Actually, so... funny story. We got off of the People Movers, got in there. We see them first.
By the way, round of applause for your operations team, because that seems to be going well, right?
Yeah. People
Megan
moving.
and I need to hear it. Tell us.
People moving and operations is conducting
People are
well.
moving. Anyways.
People are moving. So one of the soldiers came up to me, beelined for me. And I'm like...
This flight.
Okay. I just got off the People Mover, and I'm standing there. Actually, I was standing there with Beth and the doc, and came straight up to me, and I go, you know how somebody's coming to say something to you, and I'm like, do I know this guy? And I did. He came straight up to me. I know people say it all the time, especially if you know me pretty well. In my area around Columbus, you're like, you know everybody. Well, I do know everybody, especially, I guess, in DC as well. Okay. Sergeant First Class Ben Jenkins. I'm going to say it out loud because he's personal rather than just, another individual. SFC Jenkins, an incredible guy. He graduated 2 years ahead of me in high school, same high school.
Oh, from the same high school.
From the same high school. And, of course, I haven't seen him in quite a few years.
Look a little different.
And I told him, I was like, I'm surprised you recognize me. I look way different. I'm a whole double person more. And
oh my God.
But my hair's still there, so I guess that's how he recognized me. And but yeah, he was there.
It's the redhead. If somebody doesn't know that you're
have
red hair.
So we both grew up in Grove City. I know his family just lives just south of Grove City now. But I know I talked to him afterwards, and because we took in a selfie or whatever later on, got to talk throughout the day. And I said, I'm sure it feels good since they're stationed away. So I kind of told him the daily updated news, town hall news about Grove City.
I heard you guys talking about what construction was out. I was like, he's going to mention Columbus Street. I know it. Yeah. You complain about that all the time.
So I told him I was, what was going on in Grove City, big things that were happening. And I could tell it, he appreciated it. Yeah. Hearing stuff from home. And, I appreciated having a little piece of home, as we go. Cool. So,
well, and too, I think, we talked about this. I don't know if it was the last episode. They start to run together a little bit, but, you were talking about just kind of connections you have to the service. And I think it's really cool to be able to have, especially, I would say everyone we have met so far that's part of this unit have had the heart of servitude. And getting to serve alongside someone who's serving the country, but then also coming and being part of honor flight and serving in that capacity, it's a double service for them, is really, really neat. So getting to actually connect with somebody in that context that's actually from where you're from. I would imagine it's doubly cool. Yeah, especially if you grew up.
Whammo. So a couple of shout outs to them. I know Staff Sergeant Urban, Commander Sergeant Major Hobson, Major Albright, Major Lopresti, and then Lieutenant Colonel Lester were with us that day. So
and some of them will be on the next mission. And
yeah, a lot of them.
We'll meet some new ones. And
every time now they're like, well, we'll see you in a few weeks.
yeah, they're like, we're already taking
But
off.
it's a good feeling, and I'm sure it's a good
is.
feeling from them, having a little piece of home come out. So
yeah, I agree. Also, I just think honor flights are fun.
yeah.
I think.
And they do too. So.
And they do too. Yeah. And it's to see the dedication so quickly and watch themselves be intentional about bringing themselves into the fold of the honor flight family has been cool. Cause sometimes I think, our DC volunteers, there are some that we always have. There are some that kind of come and go, but usually they are really quick to want to ingratiate themselves with us.
And something kind of too, to recognize that now that we're on it. And I found very, very interesting, you have these, lieutenant colonels, you have these majors, and I would say, I would like to know the numbers. I don't know, but our veterans that are on the flight.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Those are bigwig officers to them in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And the way that they
true.
serve them, the way they get down on their knees, the way they,
they're under the bus, shuffling wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, but to see them, how they interact with them, like they're the privates and, they're the officers.
They treat our veterans like royalty. Which
and our veterans, they look at them, they're like, what? You're a major?
Yeah.
And you're helping me out?
I should be standing up
yeah,
too.
right? And maybe military, rankings are different now. They didn't see it as much back then. Seeing the bigger officers.
I think you would hear, because what I've heard is that this has been a big deal for the vets. And I think this is why we love partnering with active duty, because there is something really special about them seeing, because you look, the veterans are seeing this was me in the past, and then they are looking at the veterans saying this is me in the future. So there's this connection that they have that you and I just can't have with them.
Yep.
Going both ways. So it's a super successful partnership, but it's also just a really enjoyable one.
Yeah.
As you're saying. So we're excited for the next mission with you guys. Again, that's the 174th Air Defense Artillery Brigade. And what did you say? What was the
Task Force Brutus?
Task Force Brutus. Okay, cool. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we took the liberty, because we create a schedule every season, and Caesar, our lead bus driver, he kind of helps with that, get all the timings situated and help us kind of knowing, especially with a new airport. And so anyways, we had been creating a schedule where it's like, we want to do the Air Force Memorial in Iwo Jima before Arlington. But that just never is going to happen when you're doing the people mover and the longer drive. So this time we just said, okay, let's do this different. Let's start out at Iwo Jima. So what was the first thing? Because when we were talking about this leading into the podcast, you said to me when I brought up Iwo Jima, do you remember what you said?
A lot of time.
Yeah. So we actually got to take our time there. We weren't rushed. It felt very intentional.
Correct.
It was a beautiful morning at that point. Some clouds in the sky, which as I'm learning is good.
I would say the majority, at least the flights that I've been on, the majority have been in the evening, which is pretty cool to see.
At Iwo Jima. Yeah, we've done some evening. And then as the time change starts, so like it's not so much of a deal now. It would have been in March and April, but it will be again in the fall, is we don't love to do those when it's dusk outside because it gets harder to see and there's steps, all of that. So this was a really perfect, I loved this schedule. I'm really glad we did it that way. And then we went from Iwo Jima to Arlington National Cemetery. So this is always one of the best stops coming from the opinion of the veterans. And there was a couple of things to talk about here.
Schools.
Children.
And,
So
I'm
going to start with my critique. Okay. And Beth, when you listen to this, you can yell at me for critiquing this. There were kids everywhere, and not just at Arlington. They were everywhere. And kids, we love you. You're tomorrow and all that crap. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm not. I'm not kidding. But something logistically to think about when you have all these groups of kids, when kids are with their parents or maybe one friend or two friends, they're a little bit more aware. When there's a group of them, they might as well be, in their own high school gym playing around and doing whatever. And this is challenging for us because they'll take up the whole sidewalk and then some. And you're like, okay. But thankfully the two schools that were at Arlington, this wasn't necessarily the case with them. They were really respectful, and we knew they were going to be there ahead of time because they were from Ohio. Yeah. So what schools were they from?
We had Dempsey Middle School and Gahanna Middle School.
Yeah. And I think
Dempsey, it's another one of those pieces where when whether or not they knew it, I'm not sure if the kids knew, all of them, because kids aren't always aware. But also the veterans, when they saw like Hannah, they got really excited.
They were pumped.
You see somebody you go on vacation. Okay. You go on vacation. You're in the middle, I don't know where, Bahamas. I haven't been there since I was a little kid. And then you meet somebody and they're from Lewis Center. You're like,
this happens.
Columbus.
If you wear an Ohio State something on vacation. So like I was in Disney and I wore an Ohio State sweatshirt and you just hear OH.
Yeah. I'd be getting excited though because it's cool. You're experiencing something and you guys live the same life, same day in and day out. So, yes, Dempsey Middle School and Gahanna.
And Dempsey, I believe, were the ones they supplied some mail for mail call, which was a really cool full circle moment that the veterans got to see the kids there, talk with the kids, and then have the mail call. And so, you know, obviously I complained about seeing the kids, but this is really big for the veterans, and it's about them. So we want to see the kids.
We want to see the kids. You had put them down before. We're giving them applause.
Being positive about it.
All right.
Thanks. You probably just saved my job.
Yep.
But there was one veteran in particular who we knew just because we had been connecting in and out with.
We had been watching.
Okay, Alex was watching. There's no way to say this without sounding like you're being creepy. You weren't being creepy.
I was being a fan.
You were a fan, still.
Yeah, I was watching from afar and filming.
Okay.
That's what I do. It's my job.
We don't edit things out either, so this is what it is. But Terry our board member Terry had two veterans this trip. One of which his name was his name was Randy.
Yes,
but you were affectionately.
I call him Santa Claus, and can I tell you why?
Yes, I was going to ask. Please tell us why.
Okay, so he's tall. He's got a white beard.
He's very tall.
Extremely tall, white beard, a commanding presence. You know, walks with a cane. And I'm like, there is no way. Actually, I was talking to Sergeant Jenkins at one point, and we were standing along the wall in Vietnam. And I go, there's no way that man doesn't know that he looks like Santa Claus. And so that's how I opened up to Randy. After watching him all day, later on, I went up to him. I know I'm fast forwarding, but I went up to him and I said, do you know you kind of look like Santa Claus? And he goes, I've been playing Santa Claus for the Easter Seals for quite a few years now, raising money for children. And I go, there is no way. And so he's like, yeah.
Which is perfect because he gets along really well with the kids. He is a gentle spirit, a respectful
spirit. So back to that, Arlington.
Yes, so back to Arlington.
We look over, he's got his arm around a redheaded kid.
Did you feel like that could have been you?
I did. I saw the kid smile like it was natural. I'm like, does he know him? He didn't.
No. And he was interacting with the kids very intentionally, very respectfully. Mm-hmm. And the kids were just totally, and I mean, he has Santa Claus's spirit, so it made sense. And his laugh and his smile. So, how did Randy serve?
Also, Iwo Jima, going back, the first time I noticed him, it was because he was photobombing.
With a group of kids.
With a group of kids that were there.
He was. Yes.
He was in the background, like smiling.
Yeah, he was living it up, and it was not even 10 a.m. yet.
Yeah.
So Randy though is a veteran. Mm-hmm. He's Santa Claus, but he's also a veteran. Correct. And what was his service?
Actually, here there's a clip when I was talking to him at the wall.
Let Randy tell us.
Yeah, we'll let Randy tell us.
In 1975 through 1979. I worked in OMS. We worked with bombers and tankers. Operational Maintenance Squadron. We were B-52s and KC-135s.
So that's how he spent his service.
And we'll talk about it when we get to Vietnam, but he had a cool moment there as well. So, but he ate up this attention from the school kids. And I think too, because he's not only just like a personal presence, but a physical presence in the room, that leaves an impact in any room, but it leaves an impact on the students. So Arlington was great. I think there was a wreath presentation too. We were kind of running around trying to get different views of the group to photograph. And then, okay, I have to say this because it's going to be in my head. Did you know that we had more than, 4 veterans over 6'4"?
I noticed it when we got in the plane.
Oh my gosh, I felt so short. I mean, I am short, but wow.
I did tell one gentleman, and I don't know his name. I had said a few things to him throughout the day, but it was when he was sitting in the seat, and he kind of looked a little bit kind of squished, even with all of the room. It was when people were loading, and I was standing up, with the luggage thing over my head, and I was kind of ducking, and I just said leisurely to him, like, I act like I'm ducking, but I don't need to. And he looked at me and kind of chuckled, and I'm like, I know you don't have this issue, and then I walked away. So
that's so funny. Yeah, they were troopers on that plane, but I just had to mention. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's not common to see that many people over 6'4", let alone that many. So we had our lunch at the Navy Memorial again, which was always a great stop. We haven't talked a lot about the actual Navy Museum that's there. Sometimes we've stopped and we haven't had time to go down. But this time veterans were able to go down and maybe see some more in-depth objects representing their service. But we go in and we check in with the staff member that's working there. And oftentimes they give us a pin for either every veteran or every volunteer and veteran on the trip. And it's the lone sailor statue, which is part of the memorial itself. And I just think that's a really cool touch. I mean, Air Force usually will go out and we'll talk to somebody to check in, but we don't really interact much beyond that. And then Iwo Jima, you don't interact with anybody. So there's something really cool about that with the Navy Memorial that I thought worth mentioning.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty amazing. And I know, I forget if we had talked about it last time, but kind of commanding the whole Navy Memorial itself.
Oh, yeah, we have.
About clearing out the square, for our veterans to be there and whatnot.
Yes.
So they're really good, really responsive, always there to help.
And you feel like they are prioritizing the veterans because it's the Veterans Memorial. And that's the whole premise of why we do what we do, because we're taking these vets to their memorials. So it really is, it feels like a partnership there. So we were so happy to be able to have time to spend there. And then we head to the not main stop, but the longest is the word I'm looking for, longest stop of the day, where we do World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and then for some people they see Lincoln as well. We've talked a little bit about this on the previous episodes, but we always present our eldest veteran or our World War II veteran with a flag. You've talked about your experience with that. This year is kind of a reset. So if you've done it before, you may be asked to do it again. But we are being intentional in the office of nominating individuals. Again, I think we talked about this, but nominating individuals who are going above and beyond with Honor Flight, going above and beyond with the veterans, not just really great guardians, but doing other things as well. And this trip, it's been easy every single fight, but this trip we gave this to Eric, who is our wheelchair maintenance team lead. So often he doesn't get to fly with us because he is part of the bread and butter of what makes the airport work. And we've talked about Eric on the podcast before. So Eric was presenting the flag to Gene, an Army veteran who served during the Korean War era. He was stationed here in the United States and served as a machine shop instructor. He was sweet. I don't think you got to talk very much to him. I talked with him for a little bit when we were doing pictures. He was sweet. It's always cool to see, we have them sit in the wheelchair for the presentation. But the ones that want to stand up or try to stand up to receive that flag, that always touches me. And Eric took a minute or two to kind of say a few things to Gene. Yeah. I don't know what it was, but I think that moment being intimate between this person that we've nominated and the veteran is really cool. So
yeah, I did notice that actually in my head. I was like, oh, that's not peculiar, but just different from what we've seen when he had stood up.
He wanted to soak that moment up. And Eric is actually, a little thing about Eric. One of my first groups of veterans that I was a guardian for was his dad. This was like back in maybe 2018 is when I had his dad. I don't think it was as early as 2016 when I started. And he was part of a group of veterans who had all met as part of a PTSD support group. And this is one of the most memorable groups I've had. His dad was so incredibly kind. And I didn't this year, but I always usually send my veterans a Christmas card and as a way to stay in touch with them. And when I met Eric, when I started working here a year or so ago, he said, yeah, we wondered who this random brunette was that was always on Dad's fridge. And, there I was, or however he said that to me. But Eric has been, he's only been part of the volunteer corps. He started about when I started working here about a year ago, and he is already a team lead. He's already taken on, he does a ton of outreach events. And he is always out in the community advocating for veterans in one way or another. And it's a way he so feels the mission of this organization, but more importantly, he just feels on his heart. And if you talk to him, you can see it in his eyes. He has a heart for veterans.
Yeah.
And so that's fundamentally why we wanted to present him with that opportunity. So we did the presentation, and then we kind of made our way to, we went straight to Vietnam this time. And there was a couple that I wanted to talk a little bit about.
Yeah. With Asia.
Yes.
One of our high school students.
Yes. Which all three high school students, Nora and Asia, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I'll come back to it because I know your name. And if you're listening, I know your name. But anyways, Sienna. I did it to her on the flight too. I called her something else and I know her name, Sienna. Anyways.
Sienna's taller.
No, that was Nora.
Oh, that's Nora.
You don't know. Don't act like you were better than me.
I met all of them actually for the first time right after when I took their picture.
The three of them stayed busy. I mean, they really did. And they were excellent. I heard great feedback on
sometimes
all three.
I'm like, I know there's high school students here on the flight. So like you're looking around whether
I hope this is going well for you.
Yeah, right. I hope you made it and I hope you're having a good time.
We keep better eye than that. Well, I don't, but I'm sure Megan does. Anyways, so Asia had Jean and Mark, and they were a married couple. They both served in the Navy. Both were into cryptology, which is really cool. Mark served from 1972 to 1976, and then Jean served from 74 to 78. Mark was stationed in the Philippines and in D.C. Jean, as a lady, we interviewed her for the Military Women's Memorial. And so one thing that struck me about Jean's profile when I was writing the narrative component.
Here. I'm going to have you.
You want to hear a little bit part of this?
Let me tell this part first and then you do that.
Okay.
Because it'll be out of order. So anyways, what really struck me about her perspective is that she was like, there's all these things they make you do when you're in the military. There's all these rules and regulations and routines and whatever. And she said, but instead of getting frustrated, I always just tried to see that there was a reason for it. They weren't trying to take something away from me. They were trying to leave me with something. That's cool. And I thought that perspective was really cool. You don't often hear that.
Yeah.
Are you playing the clip we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So just the context of it.
I thought she was getting two.
What are you talking about?
I thought, is that what we're talking?
Presentations?
Yeah.
So when we did the presentation, she had 2 certificates given to her, and this was because
Beth
of
was
Asia.
Confused, to be honest.
You did? No.
Beth was like, "Oh, and the other one," and I'm like,
"There is only one.
She did it already."
This is one veteran. Her guardian Asia reached out to me before the flight and just said, her grandmother also served. Mm-hmm. That was your cue.
Oh, yeah.
Cross nurse, and she was served in Kiev for 6 months. Oh my God. And then
Here, I'll hold this one for you. I'll hold this one for you.
Then she and 2 other Red Cross ladies in May, they left and they traveled by train through China and down to Japan. She met the wife of a captain who was ill of the John Anna. And the wife asked her to stay and take care of the captain. And then on the John Anna, she met her husband.
Oh my gosh.
Because he was first mate. So he was able to kind of mingle with
Oh
the
my
passengers.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my smooth. I love
and
that.
then they docked in Portland.
Oh my goodness. And then that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
So her grandmother's name was Helen.
Yep.
She served in 1914 for about a year, was sent with other nurses on the USS Red Cross, aka the Mercy Ship. And then, as Jean mentioned, she served in Kiev for about a year, was awarded the Cross of St. Anne from the Russian government before she left. Yeah, which is really cool. So Asia wanted to know if we could possibly, facilitate getting her grandmother registered, further registered, and then a certificate presented. So we were able to surprise her. And that, I thought that was really cool.
Was she in? When did her?
1914.
1914. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So not World War II. No, that's where you're going with that.
Yeah.
So anyways, yes. So the reason I was thinking about them is I was watching. They had brought photographs of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Jean of her and Mark. She brought stuff together,
yep.
or things for both of them. And so we looked at that I saw that at Vietnam. I looked at them when actually in the morning when we were at Iwo Jima, but I thought it was cool to see. I always love seeing the photographs at the memorial they correspond to. So like looking at the Navy photographs at Navy or the Vietnam era at Vietnam is really special.
Yep.
At Vietnam, kind of going back to Randy. Randy was a chatterbox all day. He talked about all kinds of things. His service, his life. I mean, he was just fun. He was a fun guy. And when we got to the wall, he found a name. It was his cousin, I believe. And I was impacted. Usually if you ask a chatty veteran to talk, like, hey, can you tell us a little bit about the story of the name that you're looking for? Oh yeah, this is my so-and-so. Do you remember what he said to you when you asked him?
He said about leaving it there.
Mm-hmm.
About the name, about leaving it there. Just
Yeah,
not.
he said, I think I'd like to keep that private.
Yeah.
And there was something about that to me that kind of gave me chills. It was like, I don't know. It was like he came there
and he took
to leave it at the wall.
Yeah, he went there, and if you'll by the time this comes out, you'll see a reel. But he spent some time there,
just touching the name,
quietly. He rubbed it for a while, and then he did a rubbing of it, and then he was just quiet. Had a few reflective tears. I could tell he's a big man, so tears don't come out easy. And then you had asked him, and he said he'd rather keep it right there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you asked him.
Yeah. And then I got him chatting about
his service.
His service.
Yeah, you pivoted so well, and he was so graceful and gracious about that moment. But I think sometimes I want people to know, as they're listening to the podcast, maybe your flight's upcoming, or maybe you have a loved one or a friend who deserves to go but might not want to go and talk. And I just want to reiterate that there is a place on an honor flight to not talk. I mean, this is your flight, so you get to decide.
I know. And then sometimes it's between if you ever have the gift of being a guardian with a vet or being there and getting to talk with individuals that need to let it out. I think the times that I've been with those individuals, of course they weren't my veteran, but you're right there. And if you give them the open arms, the open space, they'll tell you. So I know
if they need it, they'll take it.
So we were standing there, Randy and I were standing there after he was talking. And I know I have it on film, but it was from a ways away because they were having a moment. Terry was talking with her other.
Her other veteran, yes.
Chuck. And he was a Vietnam vet. She was presenting him with a challenge coin. And I know he had quite a few tears. He was talking quite a bit with her.
Well, and I think if I got this right.
But Randy
Randy
had said, he goes, it's just amazing. It was his words. And he goes, just amazing. He said, what a man. That's just amazing, as he teared. And I think Randy
talking about Chuck
because Chuck is in a wheelchair and Randy was walking. He's a tall force, and he said, I'm going to let them have their moment. And he walked away.
Yes.
He walked down to see more names.
Yeah. He walked with you. And so when you went with Randy, I stayed with Terry and Chuck. And Terry said, and I've heard her say this with other veterans as well, if you didn't serve in country, oftentimes our Vietnam veterans can feel like they don't want to go on the flight because they feel like they're taking somebody's seat. And we're trying to explain to them, no, it is so important to the guys and ladies who served in Vietnam to see the Vietnam Wall with you standing there too, because you are part of this. You still serve. Your service is equally as important. It's just different.
Yep.
And I think it's particularly poignant to be told that at the wall by Terry, who is a veteran herself. Like we talked about with the active duty fellows, it's different to hear from somebody who's also served. And so, and I thought about this too with Chuck, the other veteran. He was in a wheelchair. He had oxygen. He was on oxygen. And I was just really struck by, it is so brave to go on an honor flight. It doesn't matter if you're Randy or you're Chuck or anybody in between. Yeah. I mean, these are veterans who were saying, hey, come with us. We're going to take you to DC. No, it's not going to cost you any money, but it's going to cost you your time. And also it's really, really emotional and vulnerable, but come on down and we'll meet you once we get there.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And thinking about that from my perspective, a lot of times, whether, a lot of these guys, have, whether it's PTSD or just have memories that they've wanted to suppress.
Right.
Or have suppressed have gotten through that, whether it be, with help or on their own, it's just a part of their life, any part of anybody's life. You put bad things behind you, to have to go and to possibly relive that, possibly talk to people who, served during that same time or served in the same war, knowing that might open up again is huge.
And it's so brave. It's so brave.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we're like, when you're out outreaching in the community, you're like, well, come on, there's no reason for you not to go. No, there's 1,000 reasons for them not to go. And we're asking them to trust us after, especially for Vietnam vets, they weren't welcomed home. So we're saying, oh yeah, come do something patriotic with us. Trust us.
On the other hand, also, when I had first gotten out and I had just saw Sergeant Jenkins, actually, before I ran to the restroom, before the second people mover came,
Oh, yes.
I talked to one of the Dulles volunteers.
Oh, okay.
And never get to chat with them. Normally they're like, that way, welcome. And I'm like, thanks, I'm running. But I talked to a gentleman, I couldn't tell you his name, but I talked to him and we got in a conversation for about 2 minutes, and he said about recognizing, these guys have the biggest smiles on their face when they get off of here and they're shaking hands or people are saying welcome. And a lot of it has to do with, he goes, because a lot of times they're quiet at home. Or they don't have somebody at home. And I said to him, you imagine though, thinking from my perspective was these guys, they had military service. People used to thank them long time ago or didn't thank them. But also, a lot of this generation or these generations, we've moved on.
Right.
They're the things that were important in their lifetime. They're
The technology is different. The style, the culture is
and
different.
for people to recognize them and say, hey, it's like you work somewhere for 40 years, you retire, and 20, 30 years later, people don't even remember you worked there anymore.
Yeah, what's your name?
But for somebody to come back and say, hey, remember that, what you did all that time ago?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, I'd like to relive memories that they probably relive every day, but nobody recognizes it anymore. So
yeah, like you said, it's like you retire and you go back, or you like spend your whole life going to school and then you no longer go to school, and then you're like having this identity crisis. You get through it, you get your job, you move on. But nobody really, you leave that so far in the past. And I think with military service, like you mentioned before, there's so much you're purposefully leaving in the past. You've changed so much as a person since then. So it's a lot to take a step back into that space, but so many need to do it.
yeah,
And everybody needs to be thanked for it.
correct.
Yeah, I agree. Now, okay, so these have been, we had a little bit more of a serious moment there with Randy. But we had a couple veterans that we got to see.
Oh my gosh, they're.
We'd play those clips, but they're not appropriate.
I have a saying a lot of times. This is a good transition, especially for Dick. I literally tell people all the time and be like, it takes all types to make the world go round. Or I say that guy's a little off, and then I think about myself. I'm like,
You're mega off.
Yeah, people probably say it about me all day long. So, not that Gil and Dick were off. They were a comedy. They
were okay. So let's
I'm pretty
set the
sure
context.
that they tour the world as a comedy act.
This is what blows my mind, because you're absolutely right. So we're on the plane. First of all, their guardian was Christy, who is a veteran herself and now works for the Veterans Service Commission.
I did not know that.
Yeah, when I was looking her up this morning, because she didn't talk about it, and I guarantee you it had something to do with the fact that she's like, this isn't my honor flight. This is about these vets, not this one. So anyways, I met her at training. She was sweet. We didn't have a lot of time to talk. And then we talked with her a little bit on the plane. And then they were on our bus. And so we got to see a little bit more of them than we did with some of the other veterans who weren't on our bus. And I think it was really at Vietnam when we talked to them the longest, wasn't it? So I thought, after interacting with them for a minute, they were hilarious. They were so funny. And I think it is so special to get to be with Vietnam era. So Gil is Vietnam era and a little bit before. And then Dick is Korea. Or actually, he's the Cold War between the two. So I'll say this. Dick served from 1955 to 1959 Air Force. He was a navigational aid technician. And then Gil served 1957 to 1963. So anyways, we're down at a memorial, the Veterans Memorial, and to watch them get to laugh at a place like that, I think is really important.
Oh yeah.
To get to share a joyful moment
The first
together.
thing he said was,
Gil or Dick?
Dick.
Yeah.
He goes, well, if it fails, I'll blame him about his plumbing.
Yeah.
And I go, what is he talking about? And he goes, no, really.
Gil's a plumber.
Gil's a plumber. He plumbed my house. And I was like, oh.
So, yeah, they didn't choose to travel together.
No.
So they were basically strangers, except I guess Gil had, I don't know if that was a bit or.
Right? It could be
I don't
way
know,
off.
but they didn't know each other.
You're telling me Gil never was a plumber in his life?
Okay.
Because they were fun to watch.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to call him and he's going to be like, Haley, I'm not a plumber. But I asked Christy, I said, were they trip buddies? And she goes, no. But literally, like you said, it was like they were a comedy act touring the world. Yeah. And they sat behind us on the bus, which you didn't realize until later. And then it just got even funnier.
And then Dick wouldn't let it go after that. He was like, I'm watching you. He would whisper stuff in my ears.
Oh my gosh, they were so much fun. And I think
when we met them too, Staff Sergeant Urban was there because she had been pushing one of the wheelchair. And I looked at her, I was like, I tell you what, you've had a rough day. And she goes, this is the most entertaining day I've ever had in my life. She was a sweetheart about it. She was really funny.
She played, and I think Christy set the tone great for the group, and would love to have her volunteer again. But I think why I wanted to talk about them, other than the fact that they're just so fun, is it's kind of that juxtaposition of the different experiences you have on an honor flight. So you have these moments where, they're more serious, like Randy finding the name he was looking for on the wall, or I know there was another gentleman who didn't know the name he wanted to find on the wall, but was able to find it, see a picture of him, that kind of scenario. But then you also have these moments where you just full belly laugh.
Yeah.
And I think you
needed that comic relief.
You do, but it's also, I think oftentimes we think of like we can release emotion through tears, but we also release emotion through laughter. And I just, it seems like a lot of times we forget that as a people. We forget that, it is good to cry. It's important to cry, but at the same time, it's really important to laugh. It's imperative. And so getting to share that on an honor flight with a veteran is probably my favorite thing. I mean, I love the powerful stories, but to just laugh. And it doesn't matter where you served or what you did, you can still find me funny.
Right. Yeah.
That was a joke, Alex. You're supposed to laugh.
Oh, that was great.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
So anyways, so we did those stops. And then after we finished at the main long stop of the day, then we went to the Air Force Memorial, and that's when we actually had a little bit of rain, but it didn't really stop. A lot of people still got out. You could kind of get dry underneath the spires, and then somebody brought up the brilliant idea, like, well, if there's lightning, that wouldn't be good. So anyways, there wasn't lightning, so we were okay. But we were able to stop there for the Air Force veterans that wanted to get off. And then we went to dinner at the Military Women's Memorial, where we had Mission Barbecue again. And then we had 2 lady veterans. Monica, we haven't spoken much about her, but that lady is fun.
Yeah.
She's a spitfire.
She is something else.
And I was told today when we got in the office, so Trey, Michael, and Caesar are our 3 bus drivers. Trey, you know what? We should do an episode this summer where we have them as a guest, where they call in. Can we do that?
Yeah, we should do that.
That would be so fun. So anyways, Trey's a hoot. They're all funny, but Trey is he's just one of a kind. And Monica was making him blush is what I heard, which was hilarious. And then, of course, we got to the welcome home. And we'll get into that a little bit in a minute, but I wanted to take a second and kind of talk a little bit about social media. Yeah. We're always lurking on the social media to see what people are posting about the flight. So the flight was May 8th. And on May 3rd, Guardian Layla posted a picture with her and her 2 veterans. This is when the excitement really kicks in. I got to meet my sweet veterans for the upcoming flight. Their wives were lovely as well. Both served in the Army in Vietnam. One was a Bronze Star recipient. The stories they've already shared, and then she has like the sentimental crying emoji. This will be another amazing day. I'm so honored to be part of their story of healing. And Layla was an incredible guardian. I saw her a lot. I've flown with her before, but I saw her a lot more kind of in passing, and she just did such a great job. And then she posted this after the flight. Still processing all the emotions of the day from the honor flight. So many stories, so much healing, so many memories. 1,500 people came to welcome our veterans home. It was a perfect day with amazing people. There truly are never enough words to do the experience justice. I'm so honored to be able to be part of their journey and will be forever grateful to be chosen to be guardian for our veterans. And actually, interestingly enough, I saw also that Layla had met this weekend, got dinner or something with veterans that she had been guardian for in the past. So that continuing relationship that she has with them. And I just thought that was worth mentioning, watching these veterans go from that exciting moment and then leading in all the way to the welcome home and then the reflections afterwards. So as Layla said, she said about 1,500 people. I think Boots said about 2,000. They said it was a really big group. Lots of applause.
Sorry, I had to.
We're going to take away your board privileges. Just kidding. That was earlier when I made a joke and you didn't laugh. So anyways, it was a big welcome home. Another really good one. I feel like we got some really great content.
It went forever too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they group up, and so there'll be
it's deeper. On either side of
but
the
this
aisle.
one I remember telling one of the veterans, a gentleman, and I can't remember his name, and I feel really bad because I would love to talk to him and hear more stories. He was a Huey pilot.
Is this the one? Did he
medevac.
go on this trip?
He did.
Okay.
Is a medevac pilot.
Oh, really?
For Huey back in Vietnam. And anyway, so he was going, and he looked at me and he shook my hand as I'm taking pictures in the gauntlet. And I go, he's like, this is awesome. So many people. I'm like, man, you're only halfway through. I look back and a lot, it
was
kept
the
going
big
forever,
one, and it was
so.
loud, and I felt like the crowd was like there. It's always a good crowd, but I feel like the last flight and this flight both just had like a very loud, very. Oh my gosh,
the girl,
yes.
So there was a girl, and I looked over. I remember, and I'm standing on the opposite side, and I look at you, and you turn around with like this look.
She's going, Dad! She's screaming
for her dad.
That was cool.
Yeah.
We got that
over and over.
Oh, she was so. You could tell there was almost. Okay, this is my perception of the moment. It was almost like it was just her and Dad.
Yeah,
like she had abandoned thought and she was just screaming for her dad. And you spend that time in the welcome home. You're getting excited. You're seeing the veterans come through. I cannot imagine what it would be like to welcome home your dad that way. That is so freaking cool. So I think that's really. That was cool. Yeah, that was a really cool moment in the welcome home. Anything else from the flight or the welcome home before I get into the last piece here?
Nope. I think you covered that one.
Thank you. It was all in all a really good day. Like we said, the weather held out for us. Rain never stops us. So next flight's going to be toasty, but it'll be really good.
I'd rather have a sprinkle than be completely toasty all day long.
Well, that's true. That's very true. Okay. So last thing I wanted to mention, it's related to Honor Flight. I think we mentioned on a previous episode, but maybe we didn't. Washington Township Fire Department. We call it the Dublin Honor Flight, but we talked about they throw a big benefit for us. We call it, I guess it's just the ball, right? Which was so fun. We had such a great time with that event March 8th, exactly 2 months before the flight. And this weekend, there was another part. They do 4 fundraisers on behalf of Honor Flight. So the first one was what we already talked about. And then they had the big flower sale this weekend. So they just sold it out of the fire station. The flowers were gorgeous. I captured some content from that. So you guys, we'll put that out eventually. Their flight is coming up here in June, Mission 143. And then they're also doing a mum sale this fall, as well as poinsettias at Christmas time. From this flower sale alone, do you want to know how much money they made? Guess.
13,000.
No.
How much?
27,000.
Ooh, buddy.
Just from flowers. Yeah. And they were pretty much, it's set to go a few days, but they were pretty much done when I got there Saturday morning. And so I'm glad I got there when I did. So just another reminder of an amazing partnership we have in the community. I love serving with the people that come from that group as well. And even just the lady I spoke with who was kind of facilitating, she was volunteering for the flowers sale. Just talking with her was really, they're just such genuine people and they're so on fire for the mission. So, and we don't have to, the resources it would take to put on something like that they're just doing on our behalf.
Yeah, that's a lot of flowers.
Yeah.
The resources you're talking about, flowers
and time and people and
I would assume everybody in that township, their front yard is completely bare because they would have to go there and like take
Oh, you
it.
think they're just taking flowers from him?
Yeah. I mean, they respond
they're
to
not
a call,
cut flowers,
a 911
right?
call.
Oh my God.
And then they take their flowers.
Okay, Chuck, if you're listening, that is not the story going around.
We love you,
Alex
Chuck.
just made that up. So, anyways, well, I think, Alex, we're pretty set for the debrief on this episode. It was a really great mission. Thanks to everybody who made it possible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the Moose Lodge,
Yes, the Delaware Moose.
Delaware Moose.
And the next mission, Mission 142, May 29th,
May 29th.
come out to the airport. Be part of that welcome home.
Yep. Hopefully it won't be sweltering heat.
During the flight, yeah.
Yep. But we are excited. If you are on Mission 142, we are excited to see you.
Yeah.
And we'll...
Just bring your sunscreen.
Yeah, we'll see you bright and early in the morning.
Yeah, we will.
My name's Alex.
And I'm Haley.
And this has been the Mission Debrief. We will see you next time.